What is going on, everybody? I am the FDGURU, bringing to you guys a Tuesday NBA edition of my DFS podcast. We have a good-looking slate here tonight. We only had 4 games last night. Tonight, we get a nice 9-game main slate. We also have 2 later games at 10 o'clock Eastern. FanDuel and DraftKings have left those off of the main slate, which is what I prefer, honestly, because now the latest game that locks is 8 o'clock. So it just, leaves the chances of you getting all of the injury news before lock much higher when the latest game is 8 o'clock. But 5 plays in this video, as I usually do, 1 for each position. We do have some questionable guys. We do have some guys already out. That's going to open up some things. Drop a like on this video and subscribe. Yesterday was weird because I only had 1 lineup that did well. So, when I put out 4 or 5 lineups, if one does well, it doesn't seem like a good night. But the lineup that did well had a huge ROI. So, all you folks out there who play all of my stuff, the GPP should have still made it a profitable night. 400 fantasy points. Zaire Williams kept us from taking down tournaments. Saw a couple of messages. You guys sent screenshots. Good to see my members cashing in pretty big. A really, really good score. Almost perfect outside of Zaire Williams. So I had Tyrese Halliburton on cash and hybrid. I really, really liked the idea of Halliburton getting low ownership over a chalky Jalen Brunson. So I thought that was great leverage because Halliburton was projected just about the same amount of fantasy points. So whenever you have 2 guys and one of them is very heavily favored to be, high owned and the other one's not, and they're basically projected the same, you're going to want to pick the guy with low ownership, because if he ends up having a better night than Brunson, you're going to outweigh 75% of the field. So it didn't work out last night. Halliburton had one of his worst games of the season. I needed him to get 10 assists for the bankroll builder. He only got 7. He looked like shit the entire game. Brunson went off. That was the difference on my GPP lineup. I went with the chalky Brunson on GPP. So let's have a great night tonight. Benedict Mathurin was an absolute beast. He picked up for Halliburton's bad performance, 59 fantasy points. But let's look to sweep the board tonight. I do have my I do main slates on my website as usual, because that's what people are paid for a membership and subscribe to. So I gotta contribute to that on my website. In terms of Prize Picks and Underdog, go below this video. I have a $1 weekly on my Dub Club. I also will have the after hours slate on that Dub Club. It's an all access pass, so you just get everything I post the second that I post it. So let's talk about some injuries. Let's talk about the over-unders. There's a decent amount of blowout risk tonight. 5 games have blowout risk out of the 9. Orlando at home, 9-point favorites against the Nets. The Warriors at Washington. Even though the Warriors are on the road, the Wizards are, a dog shit team, so they're 10.5-point favorites still. And then the 3 later games at 8 o'clock. San Antonio, Minnesota, we have a 13-point spread. Charlotte and Milwaukee, we got a 14-point spread. And then Chicago against Detroit is a 11-point spread. So double-digit spreads in all 3 of the later games on this main slate. Just something to note. We could see teams like the Bucks and the Timberwolves absolutely smoke their opponents tonight. And then for injuries, Trae Young for this Hawks and Jazz game is my favorite game overall on the slate as of right now. Trae Young remains out. Okongwu remains out. Nothing in the Mavs and Cavs game. Banchero is still questionable with an illness. He missed last game for the Magic, 7 o'clock game, so we'll get that news. For the Nets, we have no Cam Thomas, got hurt last game, and Ben Simmons is resting, so that's going to open up some things. For the Wizards, Landry Shamet and Denny Advia are questionable for the Wizards. And then we have a huge injury report for the Pelicans and Knicks game. We got news earlier. Jalen Brunson is now questionable for the Knicks. Hartenstein with his Achilles is questionable. And then the Pelicans, CJ McCollum is questionable. And then Zion is starting to turn into LeBron James. He's questionable every game now, and he ends up playing, 32 to 34 minutes. I don't take Zion's questionable tag as seriously, but you never know. 7:30 Eastern games, so hopefully we get that news before lock. Nothing really in the Bulls and Pistons game. Nothing really in the Hornets and Bucks game. I said Brewers for Milwaukee. I'm thinking about baseball already. It's 60 degrees here today in Massachusetts, which is unbelievable on February 27th. It's got me thinking about baseball. I have a couple of you guys reaching out to me about baseball early bird memberships. So I'll start putting together things on that once March comes around, which is on Friday, not Thursday, because we get a leap year, February 29th this year on Thursday. So, and then no injury news for the Timberwolves and Spurs. Actually, we got Rudy Gobert questionable in that game. Sorry. That's kind of big. So we'll get right into my plays. Point guard Dennis Schroeder looks great. He started last night even with Ben Simmons active. We knew Ben Simmons, once he was coming off the bench, was not going to see a lot of run. Now we definitely know he's not going to see a lot of run because Simmons is out. Schroeder should be starting. They hate playing Dennis Smith. So I expect Schroeder to play. He played 26 minutes at Memphis, and they blew them out. He missed like 4 to 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. He should be projected for 30-plus minutes tonight as the starting point guard. Cam Thomas also being out for the Nets helps guys like Schroeder a lot because Cam Thomas has a high shot volume. So when a guy like him is off the court, it's going to open up more shots, more usage for all of these Nets guys. Schroeder at 5,400 looks really good. Needs 26, 27 fantasy points to hit value. He's projected for that. The matchup against the Magic isn't good. I hate picking guys against the Magic because the Magic play slow and they have a good defense. But in this spot, with no Simmons and no Cam Thomas, Dennis Schroeder looks like a pretty good play, assuming that he's starting for the Nets tonight. Shooting guard, go to DeJounte Murray again. He shouldn't be sub 9K. With no Trae Young, DeJounte Murray should honestly be like a 10K player. He'll probably eventually get there. Like I was saying earlier, this Hawks and Jazz game, my favorite game on this slate. It's just a DFS frenzy, high over-under, bad defenses, good offenses, a lot of extra usages with injuries. Just all around, this game is a great game to pick from. DeJounte Murray, 8,900, needs 44 fantasy points to hit value. He's projected for 47, and he obviously has a 60-point ceiling with no Trae Young. Point guard, shooting guard eligibility on FanDuel always helps. Played 38 minutes. Really tough matchup against the Magic. And still almost got a triple-double. 25, 9, and 11. Both games without Trae Young so far since he's been hurt. He has flirted with a triple-double. 24, 10, and 7. 25, 9, and 11. I expect him to cook again. Probably projecting him for just about 50 fantasy points. And at 8,900, he's going to grade out to be not only one of the best spend-ups on the slate, but one of the best overall value plays across the board. Then for small forward, I love the idea of stacking the two best Hawk players for tonight. Jalen Johnson's been an absolute animal. He plays a different position than Trae Young, but it doesn't matter. With Trae Young off the court, there's just a bunch of extra usage going around. You could look at Bogdanović again, but he's kind of correctly priced, 6,600. Even with Trae Young off the court, his ceiling is kind of limited. He doesn't do a ton outside of scoring, so he needs 33 fantasy points to hit value. He was pretty underwhelming, but against the Magic, but he did play 35 minutes. So if you wanted to look at a guy like Bogdanović, you could. I like Jalen Johnson more at 8,100. Needs 40 fantasy points to hit value. This young stud has been, a sight for sore eyes for the Hawks this year. Although the Hawks aren't having a great season, Trae Young's not playing well. The one positive is Jalen Johnson coming into his own. He has looked so good as a young star for the Hawks. Small forward and power forward eligibility, always a great thing on FanDuel. 38 minutes against the Magic, 52.5 fantasy points, 43 last game. He's playing huge minutes. Him and DeJounte Murray are really, really good plays tonight. They combined for over 100 FanDuel points against the Magic. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that again tonight. in a much, much better matchup against the Utah Jazz. Power forward, it's going to be tough to get away from this guy. He was popular last slate, and, he kind of disappointed, but when you can get a guy who's only 4,100, and he's starting the Jazz, like I was saying with the Jazz and Hawks game, it's just a great game environment. 1.5 point spread, should be back and forth, high scoring. They're starting Taylor Hendricks. The Jazz want to see their young guys play. They are starting Keontae George over the past week or two. Taylor Hendricks is starting over Walker Kessler now, playing 25 minutes over the last 2 games. He was a bit disappointing in a great matchup against the Spurs, but, you did have Victor Wembanyama in the front court, so a little bit different for the Hawks. I'm not too worried about Clint Capella in the front court. He's a little bit different than Victor Wembanyama. So Hendricks at 4,100 just looks really good. A starter, a big man who's going to play 25 minutes is always going to look good to get 20 fantasy points. Looked good 2 games ago, getting 24. Was a bit disappointing getting only 15.5 last game, but we should be going back to him tonight. He looks like a really strong value play. There's not a ton of cheap guys in the 4K range, but assuming that the Jazz continue to start Taylor Hendricks, he's going to look like a really good play up until he gets over 5K salary. And then we're going to stick with the Jazz. John Collins has been an absolute animal, playing huge minutes, looking really good, facing his former team in Atlanta tonight. I'm not a big revenge narrative guy, but something to note. Regardless, he's been playing really well anyways. I think it was a blowout in the Spurs last game, so he only played 26 minutes, but he crushed for 42 fantasy points. We can expect him to play 28 to 30 minutes tonight, and he's been well over a fantasy point per minute kind of guy. Been rebounding at a great clip, scoring the ball well. Needs 33 fantasy points to hit value. He's done that just about in his last 4 games. 6 of his last 7 games with, low to mid 40s upside. John Collins looks pretty good until he gets up towards 7,000. I'm going to be looking at John Collins just because not only is he playing well, but it's just the premier matchup in Atlanta in a high over-under in fast-paced game. That'll do it for this video, guys. Let's have a great night tonight. Get over to my website, fd-guru.com, for the main slate, FanDuel and DraftKings, and then all my other parlays and betting content and non-main slates will be on my Dub Club. Link below the video. Get on that as well. I do appreciate you guys for stopping by. Until next time, I am the FD Guru. Peace.